Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We may make a start. My trusty Apple phone tells me it's 10:45, so I think we'll make a go at that. Welcome, and thank you all for joining us at this very exciting Climate Expo, and particularly for joining us at this meeting today, because it probably indicates that you've got some intention of electrifying, which is marvellous. So this is a getting started session today. I'm Wes Galt. I'm the councillor for Glenferrie Ward. I'm also the chair of Council's Climate Advisory Committee and one of the founders of Electrify Boroondara. But I also, to follow on from the theme in the other room, we moved house about a year ago. We also have a mid-century house, very fashionable at the moment, I understand, and we're one appliance off being completely electric. Unfortunately, that's the central heating system, so I know that's very expensive. I'm interested to hear what's being said today and to hear how to do it a little bit cheaper. But look, I'd like to start with the acknowledgement. I acknowledge the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional owners and original custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to elders from other communities who may be with us today. So, I think it relieves everyone else for doing it. I think we haven't time for lots of welcomes to country, but that's the one. So today is about getting started, but I'm looking at the calibre of the group we've got with us today. I guess if you started, there'll be lots of more expert advice as well. We've got three wonderful speakers with us today, and what we're proposing to do is give each of them 5 minutes. Now, I will try and keep you all to time, but Peter down here has been armed with a bell. So if you get close to that time, you'll hear a ringing noise. Be not alarmed, it's all very friendly. And then at the end, we'll have questions. So a bit after 11 o'clock, we'll move to question time, and that's when you can really get stuck into everyone. So welcome again. So getting started, I'd like to welcome first to speak is Danielle King. Danielle is a director and senior sustainability advisor from Green Moves. She knows and speaks of it, has experience in energy efficiency, efficient buildings, and residential efficiency scoreboard, which you do. I understand Danielle's also got a stand outside or a stall and is available to speak to further on today. So Danielle will speak to us today on energy efficiency measures, appliance choice, batteries, solar, and subsidies. So welcome, Danielle. If your 5 minutes starts now.
Oh, right now. Can you hear me all right? Is that speaker working? Right, okay, great. Okay, I'm not going to cover all of that in 5 minutes, but I'm going to give it a shot. Right, so when it comes to the journey for electrification, we know that the pathway is all those appliances are quite major, but there are things that you can do first, and that's things in relation to being more energy efficient. So when it comes to our homes, there's three parts to it that you can work on, which don't require major transition, and this is the efficiency of things like the home building shells, so your walls, your insulation in your ceiling and your drafts, and things like that. The second part of it is how efficient your appliances are, and then the third part is how you actually use the home. Like, do you go out and leave your heating on all day while you're at work so the house is warm when you come back? And I do know people, sadly, that do that. So that's not efficient use of home. So I think the first thing really is to focus on energy efficiency first, and then work at other things, put a schedule in place for what you need to do when major appliances go. So focusing on electrification, which is what this particular expo is all about, just generally speaking, electrical appliances are way more efficient than gas appliances. So, and gas costs, as you know, have gone up almost 300% over the last 3 to 5 years, and I know that's the case because I've checked my own gas bills, and they have definitely gone up at least threefold since 5 years ago. So we're all noticing. Anyone with gas is certainly noticing the hit on the energy bills for that. But the best thing about electrical appliances is not only are they more efficient, but you get the choice of fuel source. So with gas, it's just gas. With electric appliances, you can power it from solar from your roof, from a battery, from green power that you buy off your provider, from carbon neutral power that you buy off your provider, or you can just buy black coal for the cheapest possible thing. So you get that choice. So with gas appliances that you have, they're very major appliances, so cooking, heating, often hot water and things like that, sometimes pool heating, sometimes gas barbecues. And they will take time, they will require a budget, and it does require planning. So it's one of those things that you can't just go, I'm going to do it like that. It's something that you need to put in a bit of a transition plan so that you can make the most of it and change the appliances over as you need. So gas heating, hot water and pool heating, as we've mentioned. So with cooktops, you can go to induction, or even if you can't go to a major induction unit, you can actually just go to a standard ceramic, but the inductions are more efficient. And there's a really good induction display and cooking display out there earlier if you want to have a look at it. The thing to note about those is you will need a 32 amp circuit, so you may need some electrical wiring done. You will need to check your pans, and it's a very simple check. Get a fridge magnet, stick it to the bottom. If it sticks to your pan, it will work. If it doesn't, you've got an excuse to buy new pans. And then check the size, because some existing cooktops won't necessarily fit into what your existing cooktop might be. For hot water, they're usually gas storage or instant units. Of course, the most efficient thing to go to there is a heat pump. For that sort of thing, you need to check the costs, because there are rebates available for these, so you can get discounts on the products, and there's plenty of providers out here that can talk to you about that. Watch out for things like where you put it, because you want to locate it somewhere where your existing system is ideally, but beware of the noise, because they do make a bit of noise like a condenser of an air conditioner. So you look for one that's under about 50 decibels, which is just like a low hum, so it won't disturb anyone in bedrooms and things like that. The next thing, of course, and the big one is gas space heating. Again, the most efficient option there is to go to reverse cycle units. And whether that's split systems, separate ones for each room, a multi-head system, which is a system where you have one condenser unit and you can have up to 9 header units around the home. And that's a really good option, actually, if you're going from a full, ducted system, because you get full control and flexibility for every single space in the home. So and it will only use the energy it needs to heat the areas that are on. So they're actually a lot more efficient. So think those, or you could go to a ducted system. But yes, definitely the best are the multi-splits, because you can have a variety of header units and a variety of rooms. The good thing about those as well is that you don't have to have the boxes that hang off the wall. They can be built into like a bulkhead. They can be floor standing units. They can come from the wall units, or you can have them lodged into the ceiling as well. So there's quite a few options in terms of the header units you have for those. So I'm going to finish off in a second. So we have get a transition plan, stage it, work it on the appliances that are getting old and needing replacing first, budget for it, and look out for the rebates, because there are rebates available for the Victorian Energy Upgrades program, primarily through Solar Vic. There are some, and there's also some through Victorian Energy Upgrades where you can get some discounts. And that's my 5 minutes. Well done. If you want to know any detail, just come see me afterwards. I'm in the stand out there.
Congratulations, well done timing-wise. Would you like a job on council?
I had my timer, I was watching it. It's like, I don't want to get dinged on the bell.
The next speaker we have this morning is Dr. Rachel Goldrust. Dr. Goldrust is a researcher with Renew. Some of you may know about Renew, and I no doubt we'll hear a little bit more about it in a moment. So welcome to us this morning. She will, I think you understand your focus this morning will be on the Getting Off Gas Toolkit. Welcome.
Thank you. Am I working? Yeah. Thank you for having me, Burundara. So my name is Rachel and I work for Renew, formerly known as the ATA, which is the Alternative Technology Association. We are a national sustainable housing not-for-profit. We've been running workshops, expos and education policy and advisory service since 1980. We have two magazines, Renew and Sanctuary, focused on sustainable housing, renewables, energy, and then Sanctuary focuses more on architectural design and natural materials and things. And my position at Renew was to create a toolkit because we saw that there was gaps in the educational and knowledge transfer process around household electrification specifically, and there was a lot of misinformation that was happening There was a lot of questions about the efficacy of different appliances, what was accessible. There's obviously going to be a huge spectrum of different houses having different situations or different circumstances that require specific answers to the questions. But we saw that there was a space to create a trustworthy and reliable, well-researched website, which is what I helped to develop, called gettingoffgastoolkit.com. So please remember that one, gettingoffgastoolkit.com. It took us all year to develop it, and it is a tool that can be used by anyone, and we really hope that it ends up being used by industry as well, and those who are working in the services industries particularly, because often there's barriers to finding the right tradies who will be able to do the work for you given the knowledge that you have or the area that you're looking to make the major changes. And we're hoping that the toolkit can be a reference and a resource so that you can access it from any point. So we started with sort of bigger questions about why get off gas and what's wrong with gas and what are some of the conditions that are leading to this change that we're all here today, obviously, to understand that there's major problems with our gas industry and the way that gas comes to our homes, and also the bigger policy questions around what is happening if we continue to support gas as an industry. Economically, obviously, we've heard about you know, the way that you can make the change can already impact your hip pocket within a month or 2 months in terms of noticeable changes in switching over to electric appliances. We're also promoting like efficient electric appliances, and like what Danielle said, that there's a lot of work that you can do in your home to look at it as a whole of home kind of process, as opposed to just looking at it as cooktops, heating water and heating space. And then we're also looking at EVs and batteries and the way that those can be filtered in and worked into your electric system, and solar. And so we really wanted it to be like a one-stop shop. So if you have solar and you're looking to go next stages, you can find a space in the chapter sequences, I guess. There's a whole lot of chapters in there on a whole lot of topics, and you can find your way from there. We also have a series of webinars that we ran just after we launched in July on multiple topics where we went deep and we got experts on appliances, on planning your electrification journey, on how to talk to tradies and those in the industry, and then also how EV, solar and batteries can work into your electric household. So we encourage you to get on the toolkit. You'll find links to the webinars where they're all an hour and a half each, and we're also running another webinar on the 30th of this month, 30th of October, specifically on strata apartments and renters, because we recognise that that was a big area where there's not a lot of information, and we're getting people who know a lot about apartments and a lot about electrifying apartments, and also people from the renters space to sort of talk about things that people can do on properties that they don't own. And the other thing I would say is I've left a couple of magazines up the back. If you're quick, you can go and grab one. But I really would encourage people to support Renew. We are one of the few organisations that do what we do. We do policy and advocacy, and we also are there talking to people about their experiences and expanding the knowledge base for renewables and renewable housing. And we would dearly love your support. And we publish 4 magazines a year, and they're on some really interesting topics. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Rachel. I think, Peter, you and I are redundant this morning. They're all speaking comfortably within the 5-minute slot. Again, another offer of a job on council. Oh, we have had Matt Freegan to go. That'll be a trial. Our third speaker today is Matt Freegan, who is a state member for Ashwood, and I understand the Deputy Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, so you should be well used to speaking. I think we heard the start of your electrification journey outside before. We're interested to hear more detail now, so welcome.
Thank you, Wes. Good morning, everyone, and I also just a quick acknowledgement of the traditional owners of our land and pay my respect to their elders past and present as well. As I said, for those who were in the other room, in our house we have recently changed our gas system over to a heat pump system under the floor. That probably made it a bit more expensive, and we had to go to a couple of providers to find one that could do it under the floor, but in the end that suited us because we're hoping to do some renovations, and so we didn't want to put anything in the roof. There was a couple of tricks that we learnt during the process. When you change over your gas ducted system to an electric heat pump system, all of the ducts and all of the tubes that go to the ducts have to be replaced. Because it does air conditioning and heating at the same time, they have to be bigger apparently. Don't ask me the science on that, but I'll take their word for it. So that does make it a bit more of a costly exercise. So it was important for us, Beck and I, to look at, with the investment for our house, how long, was it going to save us money? How long was that saving going to pay itself off? And, was there anything else that we were going to benefit from? So in our usual bills coming up to last year, when, middle of winter with the gas ducted heating, gas was about, I think, somewhere between 800 and 900 for the 2-month period. So when we got the letter from, I think Simply Energy there, at the start of this year saying it was going to go up by 30%, quickly did the numbers and thought, $600 a month. And that evened itself out, but it's still a significant investment. So our gas ducted heating system was on the blink anyway and had to be replaced. In the end, it probably cost us, the quote for the system was about $9,000 more. One of the tricks that we learnt, and you mentioned this, Danielle, is not all houses, especially in a house of ours that was from the 60s, has enough ampage coming in from the street to power some of these devices, and ours was like that. So when all the team came on the first day, we quickly realised there wasn't enough ampage, and we had to send them all home again and spend a little bit more money, another $2,500, to get the right ampage from the street to the house. Changed the equation somewhat, but in short, we're still going to save enough money each year that it'll probably pay for itself off in about 10 years. And considering that, I think Beck and I think they can take us out in a box, that'll be well worth it. The other thing that we have noticed, and I know there's a panel later today that goes into some of this, the other thing that we have noticed just in the last couple of months is that there are less sniffles and less hay fever in the house. And that's anecdotal, obviously. I mean, I can't prove to you that, but this is the general sense that we get, is that the system we now have feels like a healthier house. I appreciate that's very fuzzy, but so I think it's a significant investment to do what we did, changing a whole ducted system. But there are, as you mentioned, there are energy upgrade rebates, and I'd encourage you all to look at Solar Victoria and the VU program to see if that's suitable for you. Certainly, if you're in my area of Ashwood, please talk to our office and we'll help you as best we can. But I think going to the purpose of Electrify Boroondara and why we're all here today and we're all interested, the climate change argument is done deal. We understand that we all have to do something. As others have said, our heating, our gas heating, is 65% of our emissions. So anything we can do, whether it be what we did, or whether it be split systems, or whether it be any way of reducing that, has a real change on our state's output of emissions. And so that's something that we can slowly do together. And I just finish on this. I have a hunch that community groups that work on things for a very long time make a huge difference. I have a group in my area, or two groups, that are Friends of Creek groups, Friends of Scotchman's Creek, Friends of Damper Creek. And these are grassroots, apolitical groups of people who get together to just work on those creek areas in the environment. And when you look at photos over 30 odd years of these groups working together, the change in our local environment, if you look at Valley Reserve for instance, is amazing. And I have a hunch that if Electrify Boroondara continue the way they've started, in 20 or 30 years, we will have thousands of people who have slowly made that change, and we can look back and think that we all did our little bit and the world will be a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And I really hope, a big hope is much quicker than 20 or 30 years. Look, before we move into questions, I'd like to say one of the things that's very important to us, and it was mentioned before out on the stage, there's only so much that we can do as a council to get things changing. We can control the corporate emissions, etc., but we really need groups like Electrify Boroondara and all of you to make the change. Otherwise, we're never going to get anywhere near our targets. So we're delighted we've almost a full room now, which is fantastic. So now is question time. If you've got budding questions, there are a couple of roving microphones, one on each side of the room. The woman here with the black arm.
Thank you to the council for holding this today. It was a lifesaver for me. One comment, one very probably silly question, but sometimes they make a difference. When I had a solar system installed, suddenly became clear I had to be careful to find out from the council if the plan that was given to me for the installation of solar covered planning laws. Now, luckily I was fine, that did. The silly question I want to ask is, now that I've got a solar system, how do I work out whether I get a new hot water service attached to the existing solar system or whether I go to a heat pump system, please?
Could I get a volunteer, Danielle?
Yeah, okay. Look, if you've got a solar on the roof, your best option is a heat pump. Yep. Because the downside, solar hot water is great and it's very effective in summer, but in Victoria, particularly in Melbourne, it's not too effective in winter, and that's when you need it the most, and it would end up boosting a lot. So you're much better off with a heat pump connected to your solar as a power supply system.
Can I just add to that? I understand there are incentives to change across to heat pumps.
There are, depending on what's your system at the moment?
It's a gas.
Yeah,
it's
right.
a hot water service.
Right. So is it more than 3 years old? I presume it is, right. So in that case, you should be eligible for the Victorian Energy Upgrade rebates. I'm not quite sure. They differ depending on what it is system you're going from to the heat pump, but it'll be anywhere from probably 600 to maybe $2,000. So there's a couple of providers out here that would be able to tell you what it would be. There's Wanda Sparky, there's G-Store, there's a few others out there. Just go and ask them and see, they'll be able to give you a rough price, probably right there and now.
So I just have added here the SolarVic website.
Yeah,
That's
most
great.
of these retailers that offer the rebates they link in with the SolarVic and the Victorian Energy Upgrade, so you should be able to get the discounted price of the rebates through at point of sale. So hopefully not have to go lodge documents in triplicate to 15 different places.
Our electric hot water system was over 50 years old. We easily passed the test.
You get a lot of good rebates on that, by the way.
Oh, God. Gentleman just here.
Michael, there's one at the back.
So,
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, this chap.
right, okay. You're happy with that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your presentations. Just a quick practical question to you, Matt.
Yeah.
About your house when you did the upgrade. Is your house on stumps?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there was plenty of room underneath to do what had to be done.
Yes, so we're on a slightly declining block, so there was space under the house, and the system is probably about, you probably can't see from where I am, but maybe it's about three feet under the house, so there was room.
Yep.
But as far as the ducts go, the other end of the house is, a foot if anything, and they could fit the ducts in there. So yes, but that's a good question.
Thanks very much.
Matt, can I just continue that conversation. When I put my gas ducted heating in, with the advice of a friend of mine who's a ventilation engineer, my main ducts are 12 inches and the smallest ducts are 8 inches. Would that be the sort of size that your guys have put in?
I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how many inches they are.
300 millimetres?
They're, you know,
There are...
you're getting out of my area of expertise now.
Okay.
The actual tubes themselves, the duct tubing doesn't seem to be any bigger, really. It's, you know, like that. The actual duct entrances in the floor, you know, I don't know, they're probably 20% bigger than the old gas ones, but, you know, the only other change that we had was we had to have a second return point installed, which is quite large, and we had to sort of hide it under a table. But
if I could just add to that, we did have someone come and look at our place, and it's a heating system, and we were told to move to a heating and cooling system.
Yeah.
You needed bigger pipes to carry the cooling. So you might find they need to upsize some of the ducts that you've got to make it. All right, next question. Sir, in the front.
Yeah, thank you all for your presentations. Can I also follow on, Matt, with what you said before?
Yeah.
It sounds to me as though you've spent, you know, in excess of $11,000 upwards to convert the way you have.
Yeah.
Could I ask, I mean, did you get a government rebate or subsidy on top of
I
it?
did not. No.
Was that because you weren't eligible, or?
Yeah, I'm thanks to the good people of Ashwood, I'm relatively well paid, so
Okay.
I don't think I would have been eligible. And to be honest, I didn't look.
No.
So
I mean, it just seems to me that's a very, I'm all in favour of it, but it
Yeah.
seems a very substantial sum of money to pay for most people.
It is, and you're
you also said it would probably take, you know, 10 years to pay for itself.
Sorry, is that me?
I mean, my gut reaction to that is it, apart from the environmental questions, well, the obvious benefit, is it, you know, economically viable and worthwhile to do it? We have a 100-year-old house which probably would need a lot of work done on it, and probably the electrical problem that you've talked about. That's my concern at the moment. But
Yeah, I think for us, and my story is what worked for us, but for us, I presume that we will, you know, Beck and I will be in the house for at least 20 odd years. Let's hope I last that long. So therefore, once it's paid for itself in the 10 years, presuming we get leaked out of the system, then, you know, the further savings just are, you know, if we hadn't have done anything, or if we did it later, those further savings for that other 10 years, you know, create a negative balance, I guess. So I see that as a further saving.
Okay. Rachel, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, you know, what Danielle does and what a lot of people do is to make those kind of financial assessments for you. And you can get an assessment on your property, and you can, you know, it's obviously going to be very difficult without the subsidies and without government support to do the layout. And there, you know, there's talk about no interest loans coming in, and that there's going to be other ways that people can finance the initial outlay federally and by state. But when you look at energy prices rising, and you look and you start to map that out over a long period of time, it's going to be a no-brainer decision for you to make.
There are better ways of doing it though. So one of the things that when people have, you know, whole of home ducted systems, they're usually the whole of the home, or, you know, if you're lucky and you've got more than one zone that actually works, you can actually zone the areas off and just heat or cool that zone. But when you've got full ducted systems, they're not quite as efficient as specific room systems. And so one of the things that we advise a lot of our clients to do is, if you've got an area and you want to minimise the use of gas because gas is getting so ridiculously expensive, as long as you can close the room off, like if it's a family room or a living room or whatever it might be, if you can close it off, just putting in a reverse cycle unit for that zone and using that instead of the ducted system really goes a long way, and that then also gives you some redundancy going forward. It's a much, much cheaper solution to start with, and then as you can finance it, you can then maybe move to putting one in the main bedroom or one in a work from home office, and just do it by zone, and then just either don't use a gas ducted system, then just disconnect it when you've practiced using your reverse cycle units. It's not uncommon to find people with full working gas ducted systems that they just don't use because they have a really efficient reverse cycle unit in a family room or wherever it might be. And, you know, they might even some people I know only use it in the morning for an hour or two to warm the house up to get the kids out of bed for school. And then it doesn't go on again. So, you know, you don't have to use the full ducted system all the time. Transition slowly, put in a separate system in the main zones because it's way more cost efficient. Use those and then slowly over time work towards getting rid of it.
And I can attest that my parents' house, I grew up in Ferntree Gully, they've got a large house, gas ducted system that we've had since 1970 odd. They, over the last 5-10 years, put a split system in their bedroom and a split system in the family room with the TV, which is pretty well where they spend most of their life, and they don't use the gas anymore. Occasionally in the dead of winter when it's really bad, they'll crank it up for half a day and then they'll turn it off again because those two split systems is all that they really need, and they are drastically cheaper than the gas. So you don't have to do what we did in our house to do the whole thing. You can do exactly what Danielle's saying, and that would be significantly cheaper too, and there's upgrade.
And I think most of the push in this area is do it when you can afford it.
Yeah.
And do it when it's sensible for you. We had the misfortune of having a gas central heating system in our place, but we also had, when we bought it, lots of rooms with air conditioners in the wall, which are heat exchangers. But we also were fortunate of having a very solid double brick house with a slab, and we were advised to use the house as a battery. So late in the afternoon, while the sun's still shining, we turn on those wall units, the heat exchangers, and either cool the house down or heat the house up, depending on what time of year it is, so the house is set up for evening. So it absolutely minimises, particularly in winter, how long we have to use the gas heating for. So you can use your whole house as an integrated system. All right, next question.
Yeah, hello, thank you. Yeah, I just realized I'm not alone, so it's good to be sharing this problem with a lot of people here. I went through the same conversation with different installers about converting ducted gas heating from a 15-year-old house into electric. I think the solution was cost is definitely going to be very high if I want to keep the current gas ducted ducts. So I think the solution was just replace it with another gas system. So that's a different debate. Where I want to ask question here is the experience on the EPA laws on regarding air conditioning unit cannot be run after 10 p.m. And how does that impact? In summer, that's all right because you can turn off the cooling at night. But if you're using air conditioning reverse cycle air conditioning to heat the house, how can you manage the EPA ruling against for 10 p.m. shut off? Is that still, or am I looking at a different era?
This gentleman's looking at me because I'm on council. I'm worried about that. Does anyone have an answer to that one?
Is that in regard to the noise?
The noise and the time
noise
at night to
requirements.
which you can run the air conditioning. I mean, I can come back to you with an answer on that if there isn't an answer today.
I can only give you my experience since we've put the heat pumps in our house. There's 2 fans that are outside the house, which run when the heating is running, but they are pretty quiet. Like you have to go out the door to pretty well stand near them to hear them.
If you let me have a contact details out later, I'll get you an official answer.
One of the things you might be able to do, is it primarily for cooling or for heating?
Heating.
Oh, for heating, right, okay. An option might be to grow some plants around there to baffle some of the sound, but if you're still not allowed to use it because of the laws, then...
Let me clarify that first.
What you don't want to do is put in those little portable heaters because they'll use 4 times more than your reverse cycle unit.
All right, next question.
I'm a lovely receiver of a beautiful 10.2 kilowatt solar system, and I'd really encourage people to make sure that when they're actually setting up their solar panels, they actually look at how much you can get back on the grid. And though I know we're focusing on the financial rewards, it is very important to note that some of the providers do not provide you with much financial remuneration based on how many kilowatts you've got. So just as a little side bit there, just go and check out how much you can actually get financially. But to move on back to the community spirit, and that's why we're all here, I'm very interested in VPPs, and not only are we going to be saving money by using solar for our electrical appliances, but there's a great opportunity for us to capture that extra energy that we're going to get from our solar panels. So where are we with VPPs, and how can we as a group and a community and some of your organisations push for us to move away from these big energy providers and actually have a community-based electric grid system?
So who's brave enough to answer that? Virtual power plants.
Virtual power plants, yeah.
I'll answer some of that. It's a really great question, and it's one that Renew has focused on in the past in terms of looking at energy efficiency, energy independence on a sort of more collective scale. And there are some great organisations that are working on the cover of this Renew in terms of cooperative power and various ways that you can feed into slightly better energy systems than just independent grid systems. But as a political policy marker, I think we're still a ways off in terms of being able to get the funding and get the support to enable groups to be able to provide energy independence, because the system has not been set up to facilitate that. So yes, we are all held to ransom to some degree by the energy network and by the energy providers in the way that we feed in. And a lot of people, I come from an off-grid background, and so a lot of people over the last decade have started to look at that option very differently, in terms of not encouraging people to go full battery and go full off-grid, because they recognise the value of remaining connected to the system and not seeing the system kind of fall over at some point, because those who have the capacity to leave the system, and those that don't have the capacity have to pay more as energy descent spirals and allows people to, or means that people with the least access have to pay more in bills. So I think that the conversation has shifted to, how do we make the energy network work for us better? And I think there's a political will to that.
Wes, can I just jump in there, Wes? Because there's a couple of people really wondering what VPP is.
Yes.
So it's a bit of jargon. So it's probably badly, some people say it's badly named. It's a virtual power plant. It's basically when, let's say, a whole, a neighbourhood, not necessarily a neighbourhood, but let's say 100 people in Kew and Hawthorn had solar and batteries and would sign up through a retailer, let's AGL, Origin, Diamond, any retailer. That retailer could then give people a discount to buy the battery and give them some credits, but they would have control over the battery in your house. And let's say they had, 500 batteries. When electricity is really expensive in evening peak, they can bring the power out of the batteries to supply it, and then when electricity is cheap, they can give you a better deal. So you start to act as in concert, aggregated, controlled by the retailer, so the household gets some benefits. The retailer can sort of look at all those 500 batteries and deploy it when it's needed, and so the whole community benefits and everyone wins. But it's very early days and it's a bit, so I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mick. I think we're just about out of time, but I think we had one final question here. I'm sorry about that.
That's right. Thank you. We have a 120-year-old house with hydronic heating and gas-fired heating for that. Is a heat pump capable of managing type
this
of
is
system?
a gazillion-dollar question, isn't it? I must get this question every week. Okay, and I have hydronic heating with a gas boiler, which was put into the house just before we bought it, so 5 years ago. So I totally feel your pain. Transitioning over to a heat pump for hydronic heating, is it wall panels or is it underfloor? Right, the wall panels require a higher temperature than underfloor. So if anyone out here has got underfloor systems, the water temperature for that needs to get to about 30 degrees. And it is viable at the moment to change that over to a heat pump, but the heat pumps are not cheap. They start at about $13,000 and go up to $20,000, $25,000, depending on the size. With the wall panels though, the water temperature doesn't quite get hot enough, quick enough. So that means then that they'll tell you that you'll need to upgrade your panels, so make bigger panels. You'll also be told you need to upgrade your plumbing, which is basically putting in a whole new system, which makes it stupidly expensive and not worth the money. So right now we're saying to anyone who's got an existing hydronic system, and this includes myself, is that I'm just waiting, because right now the technology is changing pretty fast. There's a lot of good products coming through from the likes of Germany, like Siebel-Eltron have got a good system right now, but that again is 20 grand. If I want to put that on my system, I would need 2 of them to do the house. That's 40,000, it's just not viable. Right, so I would say give it 5 years, keep an eye on it, and then look to transition over when it gets more cost effective. Alternatively, put in some split systems and avoid the ducts, and just use those in the short term.
Thank you. I'm going to have to cut it short here because we've got another session after this. So thank you very much to all our panellists. I think we've learned some interesting things today, particularly on that last note. Things are evolving. Things will change with time. Don't give up now. Change gradually and watch the price. I think some of the other things, a couple of other things that come out of it, get professionals out. This is a high-level debate today. And you probably need tradespeople to come out and look at your stuff and give you firm advice, quotes, etc., depending on what's on your house. And, good luck with your journey. Stay in touch with us. You may be going to a lot of things today through our website, electrifyburundara.org. And the next session starts in about 5 minutes. So that's active transport and EVs. Thank you.